Hey there, welcome to Youthful Aging Secrets. I'm your host, Ricardo Vasquez. Today's guest is Jodi Brown. She's a 51-year-old fitness expert and mother of one, and at the age of 37, she had a terrible accident that left her partially paralyzed. Doctors told her that she might never walk again unless she underwent a very risky surgery, but Jodi refused to accept that fate. Instead, with the support of her husband, Nolan, she harnessed the power of biomechanics and exercise to walk again and rebuild her body stronger than ever before. Today, Jodi channels her experience into teaching exercises for injury prevention and aging gracefully, especially for those of us who are over 40 years old. But anyone can benefit from her advice. In this episode, we talk about how to bounce back from injuries, how to stop injuries before they happen, how to make your mindset a game changer for recovery, how to keep your hips and feet strong and mobile, how to turn setbacks into comebacks with a mindset shift, and much more. Jodi's got a great attitude and an awesome sense of humor. I had a lot of fun talking to her. We had many laughs, and I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did. Before we start today's episode, I want to quickly tell you about my free 5 Health Hacks newsletter. If you're busy, but still want to live as healthy as possible for as long as possible, this just may be perfect for you. If you don't have time to catch every podcast episode, follow all the experts, or stay on top of the latest healthspan and longevity research, that's exactly where my newsletter comes in. Every week, I send out a quote to inspire your week, a summary of the latest podcast episode, a quick breakdown of the health topic backed by the latest research and actionable takeaways, cool stuff I'm loving that week, and a thoughtful question to get you thinking deeper. The best part is you can read it in the time it takes you to drink your coffee. If you're interested, head over to youthfulagingsecrets.com/subscribe and join for free. Let's get it. Jodi, welcome to the call. I really appreciate you being here. So Jodi, the purpose of this call really is, like we discussed, is to extract your, I hate to use the word secrets, but what your routines, your behaviors, your habits, etc. Basically your lifestyle and what you do and don't do to get you to where you've currently gotten the results you're getting. Obviously, you look great. And you're teaching a lot of women to do the same thing. And so, yeah, my goal is to extract the little wisdom nuggets from you and your routine. And then hopefully people can get some value from that. So why don't we start with, how old are you, Jodi?
I am 51.
51 years young. Awesome.
51 years young. Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So why don't we start from the beginning? How did you get into this whole fitness world and exercise and all the stuff that you do? Is that something you were born with, or maybe you can walk us through it?
Well, I think I've always been involved in being active and being fit, even from being very young. I was always outdoors and always active and running. And I used to be a long distance runner up until my mid-20s. And I used to ride horses an awful lot as well. So I've always been very active. And I've always been very much into mountain walking and hiking. What I hadn't been very good at was taking care of myself when I was doing all these extreme activities. So I did used to compete athletically as a runner up until the age of about 18. And then I just would run for fun. But I had quite a few accidents and injuries which had put my body under stress and had caused some problems to my spine. And I think all the running over the years, probably not running with the best form, had caused my spine to impact and put it under stress. And then I had my daughter just over 14 years ago. And pregnancy does things to a body, puts a lot of pressure on a body. And I finally, the last accident I had was the one that left me partially paralyzed when I was carrying my daughter out of a bookshop. And I literally, most insignificant of my accidents, I tripped coming up the steps. And naturally, when you're holding a baby, your instinct is to hold the baby up and protect the baby. Mm-hmm. So there was nothing to impact my fall, and I fell on concrete. And that was, to use a pun, the straw that broke the camel's back. That's awesome. So my recovery from that final accident and all the injuries I'd had over the years was what made me think, there's got to be a better way to staying fit than hammering your body and injuring yourself. And that's what led to where I am now. And I've been doing that for the last 14 years, is staying fit and helping people to stay fit without injuring themselves or putting undue stress on their body.
Wow, that's crazy. So you said you were partially paralyzed. Could you go into that a little bit deeper, like literally paralyzed? Could you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah. So my right side, sort of from my lower back down, it wouldn't function. I couldn't utilize it. I could feel everything. So, if you touch my skin or tickled my feet, I could feel it. I could feel the touch, but I just physically could not make it function. The neural pathways through damage to my lumbar spine they had shut off, and nothing that any medical intervention was doing was making it come back. My lumbar spine was so impacted. It had so many things going on. It had ruptured discs. It had herniated discs. It had decompression, what's known medically as a black disc. I had two of those where on an MRI, what should look as a disc should look like white and fluffy. Mine was black, which means basically it had completely deteriorated. And that was what had caused damage or compression on the neural pathways. I was told by the doctors that the only sort of hope I had was for them to cut me open and put some artificial discs to, stack my spine back up again, but that they would have a shelf life and they wouldn't last forever. So ultimately, in about 12 years' time, they'd have to cut me open again and replace them. And I've seen over the years so many people who have had lower back surgery. It hasn't been successful for a lot of people. It's left them with a lot of limitations, and I didn't want that. So, and even if the doctor told me if they had done the surgery, if I was going to walk again, it would be with a walking aid. My response to that was, I probably can't repeat it in this interview.
Yeah, repeat it, please. Repeat it.
Begins with F and ends with off.
Yeah, fuck off.
Yeah.
But this is not a politically correct podcast or anything.
Exactly. And, so they told me I had to get used to it and wanted to bring me out a wheelchair. And I said, you can take that wheelchair and shove it. I'm not leaving here in a wheelchair. I'm not having one. I wouldn't even look at it. It was not going to be part of my world. And so there was a lot of trying to get me to accept my fate. And that's how my life was. And I refused to. I didn't want to speak to, listen to, or hear from anybody that had anything to say about me being permanently, partially paralyzed. So it was just, I wasn't entertaining it. It was not happening.
I love that. That's a good mindset. We'll definitely dive into mindset, which over the years, I've started to realize that I believe mindset is probably number one in everything we do. It really starts with our belief systems and what we're willing to accept and whatnot. And it seems like with this, it really did start off with your mindset where you're like, nope, not happening. And so that's where your brain starts to look for another way, because you're making it so that this is not something I'm going to accept. Right?
Exactly.
So many people do, unfortunately. So you must have been in a lot of pain when that happened, and obviously following that. Holy shit. So what happened with your daughter? Like in that moment, you did catch her. She didn't bear any of the impact?
No, she didn't. So I couldn't move. My husband got me and took me to the hospital.
Okay.
That's an interesting story right there as well. I think that was the first time my husband saw me, professional term is lose my shit with somebody.
He's a lucky guy, man. Usually men will see women in those states sometimes,
Yeah. So, I mean, I went there and I had a doctor there in the A&E was insisting I had a water infection, a kidney infection. I was like, I've just fallen down the step. I've landed on my back. And she was saying, no, it's a kidney, I'm sure it's a kidney infection. We're going to send you off and, and do a water test and all the rest of it. We'll get you some and some antibiotics. And I'm like, you're not listening. I've fallen on my back. I can't walk. My leg's not moving. I am in excruciating pain. And she was just convinced that I had a really bad water infection brought on by falling over out of a bookshop. So I was just saying to her, listen, knock that crap off. Send me for an x-ray, send me for an MRI. This is not a water infection. She literally rolled her eyes at me and she turned to my husband as though I was a child. I wasn't even there. And she went, as I was saying to her,
oh my Caddy.
Well, I'm in pain and my leg's not working and I'm frightened. And I just went at her. She literally ran out of the treatment room and came back with another doctor who agreed, yes, I think we should send you for some x-rays or MRI. So when I've made my mind up about something, when I know what's right in my body, what's wrong in my body, I'm pretty hard to convince. Try as they might to convince me that I wasn't going to walk again.
That's awesome. And I'm happy that you made that, transformation and you're currently at where you're at. That's awesome. So how long did it take from the fall to where you were, I don't want to say 100%, but where you were like, okay, I'm good. Like I'm not partially paralyzed or et cetera. How long was that journey?
It was progressive. So
Right.
I would say 9 months till I was up on my feet and walking, not completely without pain. And I did have one procedure done throughout it because there was a point where I was stuck. I'd got my leg working, I'd got it functioning, but my spine was like an S-bend. That was happening because the back muscles were in a chronic spasm and they were pulling my spine one way and then the other way. And it was excruciating. I did speak to my doctor at the time I was working with. And I said, what can you do? These muscle spasms aren't helping. And I was on 10 milligrams plus a day of diazepam to try and get them to release. And they weren't. And of course, the diazepam makes you groggy and I needed that function back. So I had what they call, I think it's called a spinal tap, where they just injected a muscle relaxer. So I was awake for it, but very docile and very relaxed. And they just inject along the spine to get the muscle spasms to release and stop. Now, because I'd already got my walking function back, but it was harbored by this S-bend in my spine, which pulled my pelvis out of alignment and made it all very, very painful. Once I had that spinal block or spinal tap, my spine was able to straighten, I would say about 75% improvement. And that made a huge difference. So from that, I was able to work on like muscle recruitment patterns, what I call that, the sequence, the order of events that muscles work and get them working more functionally. So I finally had that spinal tap after about 9 months. And then the recovery after that was really quite quick after that. I have relapses.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They're very few and far between. And I can recover from them within a day because I now know what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, you're doing a lot of the things that are strengthening your muscles and your mobility and all that stuff. So it does, of course, it makes it so it's much easier versus someone who's not active at all and something happens. It's very hard to recover from that, especially as you get. So were you on any other medications other than you mentioned, what was it?
Diazepam as a muscle relaxer. Yeah, I did take some painkillers, but they made me, and they were quite strong, and they would make me feel very nauseous and very sick. And they would only take off the very, very surface of the pain. I scrapped those. I find with for me personally, not saying this to everybody, but for me personally, whenever you take some kind of pharmaceutical, there's always a payoff. There's always something else. No, no, I didn't really want to be on the pain meds. So for the little bit of pain they took away, they gave me other problems.
Right. I'm scared of the pain meds just simply because of how highly addictive some of them can be. I'm not talking about just regular Tylenol or something like that. There's been a lot of documentaries on that. And so that's why I asked. Throughout that journey, I'm sure that was a very long 9 months, give or take to a year-ish. Were there any moments where you had doubts where you're like, maybe I'm just, frustrated or feeling like defeated. What were some of those moments, if you don't mind sharing them with us?
Yeah, no, I don't mind sharing them. Yes, of course there were moments, and there was times where I felt very frustrated and very angry if I couldn't do what it is my husband and I were working on. It was a really testing time for our marriage. Not for him; he was steadfast. For me. I mean, he was lifting me in and out of the bath and taking me to the bathroom and helping me get dressed and all those other things. And there was times that I would get very angry and frustrated, and I would lash out. And it was my fear. It was fear and frustration. I know a cup or two or a plate or two flew across the room on occasions, and a few choice words came out my mouth. But gosh, hats off to my husband. He just took it. He didn't judge it. He didn't react to it. He understood it. He knew where it was coming from, and he either did one or two things. He gave me my space, or he gave me a hug. He just always seemed to know which was the right one of the two to choose from. Because I would break down I usually after being angry or frustrated, I would break down in tears, and I would have that moment of weakness, and I would allow it, but I wouldn't allow it to stay. So, but yeah, and still even now, I still get moments of fear. If I get a little twinge or something goes into a little spasm, I'm a little bit like, oh shit. But I know what I need to do. I know what exercises I need to do. I know how to reactivate the muscles that have gone to sleep or shut down, or the neural pathway shut down. And sometimes I can rectify it within an hour, and sometimes it can be a day. This is very, very infrequent. I think the last time was it was June 2022. That was the last relapse. That was a bad one. I was in a pretty bad way then. I was overseas, so I wasn't with my husband. I'd gone off for a couple of weeks on an adventure, trekking and hiking, and bang, that's when it got me. That was the last time, and I haven't had barely a twinge since then.
And did it last long at that last one?
It did. It was a couple of days into, so it was about 5 days into my 2-week trip. And I'd done a stupid thing. I'd gone out walking in what we call flip-flops. And then they're terrible for you because your feet can't function correctly in flip-flops because you're always gripping them with your toes.
Yes.
I'd gone out for a walk down to the beach. I'd only gone down in my flip-flops and was going to walk barefoot on the beach. But I decided to go on an adventure, in flip-flops. So I couldn't function my feet properly, which meant I couldn't function my legs properly, and I couldn't function my glutes and my hips, muscles in my hips. On my sort of turnaround to come back to my hotel where I was staying, villa where I was staying, I felt that my back, it just literally started to go clunk, 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 clunk. The muscles just going tighter and tighter, and my pelvis started to go rigid and not move. And by the time I got back, I was in agony, and it had gone. It took me like 2 hours to walk back, and with this excruciating pain. So the muscle spasms had really, really set in. Yeah, my husband wasn't with me. I decided to go off on my own for weeks. So I didn't remedy it the way I would have done it if he'd been with me. So I think the fact that I had such a long flights and long driving and long waiting around in airports, the whole thing impacted. Yeah. It was a perfect storm. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it worked out. And hats off to your husband. That's very admirable. I respect that a lot. Mm-hmm. And for, I can only speak for myself as a man. Sometimes it's hard not to react, even though you understand where someone maybe in that moment you forget where they're coming from, especially if you're helping and then they're maybe snap or bark at you. So yeah, I admire that. So hats off to your husband. You're very blessed. That's great. Not everybody has that,
I am. And I often say to people, the only reason I know how to help other people is because he helped me. Without that, I wouldn't be doing this. He's far, far more knowledgeable than I am. I can only do what I do because he helped me. That's it.
really sweet. That's nice.
Oh,
Yeah, that's quite the journey. And are you almost grateful or happy that happened, in the sense that, with perhaps without that happening, you wouldn't be where you are today in terms of your business and what you're doing? Is there a party that's grateful for that experience? Or
wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah.
Wouldn't change a thing. If I had the time all over again, I'd have the exact same experience. I always wanted to be some kind of healer. And all my life, I've done something that involves healing something, someone, somewhere. Before I had the accident, I used to work for the Ministry of Education in the Cayman Islands, and I used to work with children with behavior problems in school. So my job was to figure out what were they not happy about, because behavior is a message. When children are acting up in school or whatever, they're trying to tell you something. They're trying to tell you something is not okay. I'm not okay. I'm not happy. And that was my job, to discover what that message was and help other people understand it so we could make it a little bit better. So I've always done something that involves some kind of healing, some kind of cure remedy. So this for me is perfect, absolutely perfect. And I wouldn't be doing what I do now if I hadn't had that accident and gone through what I'd gone through. I just don't think I'd be as good at it.
Yeah. I guess you also have that empathy and compassion for others that perhaps come from a similar journey, or, firsthand all those roadblocks that they're going through or going to go through. Right. So
Exactly. And not taking anything away from types of therapists or physios or whatever. I think it makes you, having experienced it and gone through it, it makes you more be able to relate more the frustrations that people are going through. Because it's one thing sharing the knowledge of how to fix and heal and exercises that you can do, but understanding what people's barriers are and what they're going through up here and here in relation to it is a whole different thing. And I can really relate to that, because the thing, what I do, the exercises, the information that I share, it's not my information. It's information that's out there in the universe anyway. I haven't really invented anything new. I may have adapted a few things, but it's just, my job is just to take that information, and just as my business consultant says, I'm a vessel for information. The information's there, and I just channel it through to people, because I have been through what a lot of people have been through. I'm just, able to channel it maybe effectively, if that makes sense.
It definitely does. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you think about any type of position in healthcare system, for example, let's take a psychologist or a therapist. I find I've had the privilege of speaking to them, and, from personally, even professionally. And the ones I find to be, at least for me, that I've resonated the most with were the ones that dealt with a lot of trauma themselves. So, I know someone that had a lot of childhood trauma, and she's incredible. And I think it's because of that experience, she understands.
It's a different level.
When people are like, "Oh, you just don't understand. I've had this or that," and they're like, "Oh, I've been through that a lot." So it builds that trust. And I think in your situation, you've gone through that hardship, and so if people even haven't gone through that, it's easier for you to relate and to say, "Listen, I know you probably feel this way, or you're thinking that way." And I think when people get that connection with you, it can help provide some motivational fuel for them as well, right?
Yeah. But it's learning it at a very real level. And we see this now in governments. You have governments met people in government who have come from wealthy families and been to private schools, and they're making decisions for a nation of people that they can't relate to.
Yes.
They've never been, a member of the working class, or they've never had it hard, or they've never understood the world the way people like you and I understand it. They can't relate it. Yet you get somebody who's kind of like come, a politician that's come up from, from the streets, if you like, or from a working class background and live that. They're far more relatable, and people trust them, because they know then they're not, talking out of what they've learned in a textbook. They're talking from life. And I think
Yeah,
that's
they have a privileged perspective, which is like so out of touch that
exactly.
like, okay, so I'm in Canada, you're in the UK, right?
Yes.
And in Canada, especially throughout the pandemic, just to touch on your point, they were pretty strict. Canada is one of the most, as far as I know, one of the most strictest with all the lockdowns and all the stuff going on. I think you guys were pretty too, right? Pretty strict over there. But
yeah,
our premier was like, a lot of the things our government was doing, it was like shutting down businesses. And I understand the fear, the things that are going on. There's so much to it. However, a lot of it was this attitude of like, oh, don't worry, it's going to be fine. It's like, yeah, easy for you to say. You're good. You still
they
continue
were
to
still
get
getting
paid.
paid by full pay.
And when people lose their businesses, you're not going to be there to help them out. And all the added stress that's like probably more unhealthy than if the average healthy person got COVID. And so not to turn this into a whole thing, but yeah, it's like they're so out of touch from it. So I totally can relate to that when I see people who understand where I'm coming from. Just that understanding alone, sometimes like, yo, you get it.
And that's where I'm coming from. I don't know if I know any more or any less than other, mobility coaches, fitness coaches, physios out there. I don't know, but I do get it. I know what it's like to hurt, to be in pain, to be injured, and to have to work with that injury and to work with limitations. Because there are many things what you won't see me doing in any of my social media or YouTube videos is doing any kind of acrobatics. Or anything that's impressive, I'm leaping upside down and swinging around bars and stuff. Ain't gonna happen. But that doesn't mean that I can't be fit and strong and mobile and be the best version of myself. Because there are some things that I'd love to be able to do, but I know that it's too risky. It's too much of a risk for me. And there are a lot of people out there. Not everybody wants to be fit by leg pressing 100K, 200K, or who want to, walk on their hands and do backflips. Not everybody wants to do that, but I think most people want to be in their best shape and do the best that they can with their physical age, physical limitations, and physical ability.
That's awesome. So throughout that experience, and we'll switch this topic in a minute. I'm just curious, out of that experience, what would you say was the biggest take-home lesson for you? Or if there was multiple, what were some of them that were really like epiphanies from the accident, from the whole experience, from the moment you fell until you were like, you're never done, but you're like, I did it. Like you hit a milestone where like, wow, I kind of recovered through this. What were some of the, the key insights or those moments where you can call them epiphanies that you walked away with?
Well, I think, like I said to you, the actual tripping over coming out the bookshop was just the straw that broke the camel's back. If I hadn't done damage to my spine prior to that, I probably wouldn't have had that kind of impact on me when I fell. I probably might have been sore for a few days, a little bit of bruised. So I think the epiphany for me was that injuries are preventable. You don't have to wait until you're injured. And certainly, I used to have very weak ankles, and I lost count of how many times I sprained my ankles. I haven't sprained my ankle in years and years and years because I now know what to do, how to mobilize them, how to exercise them and strengthen them so that it doesn't happen anymore. And it's never happened since. So that's my big epiphany is don't wait until you're injured. And that's often what people do. And I say this sometimes to my clients, that we often don't listen to our body. We often don't connect with our body until something hurts. We don't pay attention until something hurts. We don't give it that care to prevent it getting to that stage. And it's a little bit like your car. Some people might just drive the car and then bang, something's popped one day. And I probably should have taken it for a service a bit more often than I did. I maybe should have fixed that. I should have had that look at it. When that little rattle or knock was happening, I probably should have done something about it. And for me, that's the big epiphany, because my back was, my body was telling me, it'd been giving me warning signs for a while, and I wasn't listening.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Interesting. So prevention, let's switch gears. And while we're on the topic of prevention, what is your preventative maintenance like right now? Is there a specific thing you do that is a requirement for your particular injury and things you've gone through? Or do you have like an overall one that you would recommend everyone do too?
That's a big question because there's such a big directory of exercises and the things that you can do. I could sit here all day telling you. For me, there are the two things, and you'll see this a lot on my Instagram and social media, is feet, getting your feet moving, and your glutes, your hips. Feet and hips. You can stay active and still, and not that I'm negating doing upper body strength work, but if you want to be active and go outdoors and do your walking and go places, you need your feet and your hips to be working. You fix the feet and the hips, you're pretty much good to go with your knees and your lower back. Your feet are your foundation to everything. So I would say everybody should do that. If you think about a building, if your foundation isn't strong, it isn't balanced, and the structure's not right, anything you build on top of that is going to crumble. It's going to creak. It's going to crack. You're going to have to be doing repair work, etc. So it all starts with the feet. So many people, so many clients that have come to us with back problems or hip problems over the years, and the first thing we look at is their feet. And they go, no, it's not my feet, it's my back. And then my physio said, it's this in my back. And I've been seeing this chiropractor for my back for 18 months. And my first question is, if your car had a problem, if your car had a mechanical fault, you took it to a mechanic and he sent you away and your car drove perfectly for 3 days and the problem came back, you wouldn't keep taking your car back to that same mechanic and paying him week after week after week after week. People will do that with physios and chiropractors. They'll go back and they'll pay and pay and pay and pay and pay, and they'll just treat the symptom. They'll treat the back. So we've had, countless number of clients that have come to the back problems, and we've looked at their feet and we've balanced their feet, got mobility back in their feet, got the function back in their feet, and their back problems have gone. Their hip problem is gone, and we haven't even had to touch it. No, that's not 100% of the cases, but it's a big number, a big majority of cases. You fix the feet.
I agree with that. I think the feet are often very much neglected, and they are the foundation. It's where everything starts as far as movement on your feet. Of course, it's from the ground up. Question for flat-footed individuals, and I'm one of them. And I've had a lot of issues with my feet as a result, especially as I got older. I've been a lifelong martial artist, right? So we do go barefoot a lot, which is good. I think it's great. But if you neglect your feet, which I did for most of my life, and I just recently started, actually another interview with a gentleman who's a physiotherapist was also talking about that. And he gave me some ideas, which I've been doing, and it has made a huge difference. He's very big on starting with your feet and getting back that range of motion, mobility in your toes and flexibility in your toes and all of the above, and the types of shoes you wear and all that stuff. So back to the question, do you deal with people who are are you flat-footed? Do you deal with people that are flat-footed? And if so, what are your recommendations?
Yeah, I had one flat foot. That was part of the problem. One of my feet was flat.
Probably so worse than both, no? Because it's kind of like an off balance thing.
Exactly. Flat feet. So the feet are supposed to flatten. So your feet have two functions. They have two basic functions. They have quite a few functions. We'll just stick with the two. So the feet are shock absorbers, and they are a propulsion unit. Okay. So when you land on your feet, your foot is supposed to flatten. That's its job. It flattens to absorb the shock. The problem happens is when it doesn't unflatten, because to spring you forward, the feet, sort of contract and propel you forward. And so that's the problem. Can you fix flat feet? Yes, absolutely. It just means they're not moving. That's all flat feet is. It means they're not moving. What we would look at is getting them moving again. There's 33 bones and countless, I can't remember how many muscles and ligaments there are in the foot. Now, common sense tells you something with that many bones, that many joints, it's meant to move.
So you've dealt with people who have, how did you fix I'm sure there was a lot, but a general overview of like, how do you fix your flat feet, or how did you fix your one flat foot? Like, is there specific exercises? If there is like one or two exercises, if you don't mind sharing it, or just like a conceptual approach to how to address it or go through it?
Well, we've got I have a whole foot series on my YouTube channel of footwork, called the footwork, and it works on your foot mobility, your foot strength, correcting flat feet. So that's all there on YouTube. It's free. Anybody can go on there and access them and watch them. And, one of the first thing we do is get the foot moving, first of all. The foot often become rigid for a number of reasons. Footwear, let's just pick footwear, because that's one of the guilty ones. So what we have to do is exercises that involve moving the foot, because the feet actually, they rotate. The foot rotates in the middle of the foot. And the most common joint for becoming stuck is, I don't know, put my foot up in the camera, but we have a bones, a joint halfway through the foot. Often that joint won't move. So if you think, all right, I'm going to get the butt's coming out. Around here, okay? We have a joint across there.
That's a great caption for the interview, just the foot.
There we go. So if you think the end of my fingers are the joints, okay? If that joint's not moving, that's what creates the flat foot. The joint sits down, presses down. So there's loads of exercises that we can do to get that joint sort of moving there. But if you think these fingers are also those joints, a little bit, they also have this ability as well, or should have, to rotate. So one of the very common things we use is a ball, as simple as a ball, and doing certain exercises on the ball at certain parts of the feet, and then movements with the feet to get that foot movement going. But also, a lot of it is about the neural pathway connection. So if we do an exercise that sort of challenges the foot, so if we move a person's center of gravity around and we challenge that foot, then we can get that foot to wake up again. And it's like a light bulb goes off and it goes, oh, I remember now. And it doesn't want to forget again. So often once you flick that switch and you flick that switch back on and the foot remembers its function and how happy that feels in the whole body, those neural pathways want to keep firing. They want to keep making that happen. They want to replicate it. So
we'll definitely link to all your social media outlets, website, etc. And I'll even make a link directly to the foot, whether you have is it a playlist or just one video?
Yeah, no, there's a playlist. There's a whole foot playlist on there. Yeah. So,
so I'll definitely link to that. It'll be in the notes, and we'll mention we'll plug those as well, just so people are aware. And I'm going to check them out myself too. So, all right. So part of your preventative maintenance, as you said, your feet and your hips. Do you have a whole hip series as well?
I do. I have a whole. So I have a whole hip mobility series on there as well, and they're not hidden. They're free. Go and watch them. It's a whole ability. But yeah, your glutes. I would say the second most important thing after your feet would be your glutes, because your hips are a really mobile joint. It's a ball and socket joint. They move all over, and creating stability and function in those hips is crucial, because if your glutes aren't working, what takes over is your back muscle. They'll do it for a bit. Because as humans, we're designed so amazingly, almost to a fault. So, for example, if we're injured, let's just say we live a bit more organically and a bit more wild, and you become injured, something kicks in, the adrenaline kicks in, and we've seen animals on nature programs with one broken leg, able to get themselves to safety, and that's how we're designed, to be able to get ourselves somewhere safe.
Right.
So anything and everything will kick in to get you there. The problem is undoing it and remembering to go back to how it used to, especially if you have an injury. It actually only takes about, for you to develop a bad form in your movement, it only takes about 72 hours for that to become the template of how you move, and it becomes a habit, because I always say,
you almost habituate that pattern. It becomes
that's it.
Habitual pattern of like,
you said it becomes a habitual pattern, and it becomes your form. So what we have to do is we have to make it remember what it used to feel like. And my husband has a really good way of describing this. He said, imagine you've been taking your kid to school, for a couple of years, and it's been taking you 20 minutes to go, around the village, around the town, up this street, back down, blah, 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 blah. And then one day, and you're quite used to that, and it becomes quite normal. It's your routine. It's your habit. 20 minutes after school. And all of a sudden, somebody says to you, do you know you could go that way? And it only takes 5 minutes. And it's straightforward. Would you go that long way again? Or would you always take that short route? You'd always take that easy route, wouldn't you? That short route.
Right.
And that's a bit how those muscles work in that body. Your body's, when things aren't working properly, it becomes normal and it becomes accepting. And you go that long route, that hard route.
Mm-hmm.
But then our job is just to teach that actually you can get there quicker and it's much easier. So that's what we do. We train those muscles, we educate those muscles to remember the short route again. And once they've learned it and they go, oh yeah, pretty soon that short route becomes normal and they don't want to go the long way around again.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good metaphor.
Yeah, that's analogy. My husband's. That's his. I stole it.
Just borrow it. I'm going to borrow that. That's a great analogy. I like that. It makes a lot of sense. Going back to the whole injury and preventative maintenance, et cetera, I've been athletic my whole life. I've always been in sports and especially combat sports. And one of the things I neglected growing up was mobility, flexibility. Obviously, it comes built in with some mobility, of course, special martial arts. But I didn't consciously say, I'm going to do some mobility right now. It just happened when it happened. There was no programming or, you know what I'm saying? So with that said, I've had, I would say, more injuries in the last 5 years than I've had my whole life. And even those injuries were kind of freak accidents. They weren't like aware. It was like in combat sports, someone kicks you in the ribs, you might get a broken rib. That's kind of different than something that's giving you signs of, hey, I'm going to fall apart soon. And so, both my knees actually hurt my knee this week. And like what I've realized is, and like you said, it's not addressing my feet. It's not addressing my glutes aren't firing, my hamstrings are tight, et cetera, old hip injuries. And so by not addressing these things, I've had all these other issues. And so I've also had that kind of epiphany, like, you know what, I've got to address this because I'm getting stronger at the gym. I'm doing all this weight, all this. But I think in a sense, well, it's a good thing, but it's also aggravating it because as you're getting stronger in these maybe incorrect movement patterns, you're kind of worsening the situation. You know what I mean? Like if your mobility isn't following along with your strength, you could actually be doing damage too, right? Well, at least for me, speaking me personally, that's how it was for me.
Yeah. Well, what you're doing is, and again, I'll take it back to that building on a good foundation. If you are not correcting, let's say your shoulder mobility, let's say, your shoulders are in a bad position, that's going to make them susceptible to injury. And then you strengthen that, you're strengthening the problem. It makes it harder to fix. And that's a real barrier. Working with people who aren't in a fitness program is sometimes easier if they're going, they haven't been doing much for years and they want to start something. That's sometimes a lot easier because you're kind of working with a blank slate. But sometimes we work with athletes and pro athletes or people who are really into fitness and getting them to scale it back and to change things and to stop doing their heavy weights or whatever, or stop doing so much cycling, so that we can repattern and reform. So we're basically rebuilding their foundation, and then so they can move forward with more longevity and less injuries is very hard to do for somebody who's already in a fitness program or in their favorite sport or, going to the gym regular and they don't want to stop. You tell them, actually we need to scale this back temporarily. And runners is a good example. There's people who've been running and they're getting a lot of knee or hip or back injuries. They've been running with the wrong shoes and been running with the wrong form. And then they come along and we say, well, actually just go back to running just a mile or 2 mile, but running this way. And the idea of not running their usual 10, 15 miles and only running a mile, it's very, very difficult to say, just this scaling this back now and relearning this and starting from scratch again, it's going to help you. It's going to eliminate the knee pain, the back pain. This is why you're having it. And often, not always, but often people are not prepared to do that. And then that's when, in 2 or 3, 5 years time, they're done. And it's just taking a little step back to begin with, scaling it back, rebuilding it back up is what's going to keep them running and running and running. Well, we have one client, she's been coming to us for years. Every week she comes to a class. I hope she won't mind me saying, a lady called Jenny. And she's a lady of a certain age. And she loved running. And we did a running workshop. She did running workshop, and she did some one-to-ones with us. And she comes to our class every week, and she could run for miles, but she wasn't running well, and she wasn't enjoying it. She was in pain, and she did it. She scaled it right back. She now runs, and she'll run forever. You see her. We've had a couple of people who have said, I saw your lady. I saw her running around Wellington Park. She runs like a gazelle. It's a joy to watch her run. She just glides, and she's happy, and she's loving it. But she would have certainly had to have given up running if she hadn't just taken that time to scale it back. I want to say her age, but I can't remember her exact age. If she ever watches this back and I get it wrong, I'm not going to do it. But Jenny, if you watch this, I'm talking about you, and you know who you are.
Yeah, if she looks incredible for her age, I'd like to interview her too. If that's cool, you make that connection. That's awesome. I love to hear those stories and
very proud of her. Very proud of her. She's very dedicated, and she's very committed. And she's, she has. You look at her; she has the physique of a 20-year-old. It's amazing.
Okay, so let's scale it back. So when it comes to longevity and biohacking, which is what this is all about, there's a few pillars, right? I call them pillars of health. Of course, you have the big three. You have your exercise, which I would put mobility, flexibility, preventative stuff. I put that under the exercise umbrella. Then you have nutrition, diet, right? I would also include, I want...
I had cherry bakewell tart for breakfast this morning.
That's another misconception people have, is that you have to be perfect. It's not true. But we'll get into that. And then we have recovery, which you could kind of put preventative stuff there, but recovery is more so rest and sleep. But then we have things like supplements could fit into nutrition, or pharmacology. Sometimes I used to be big, like no medicine ever, but I do think it fits out. There is a time and place when the time comes. Yeah. But I think when people are overly dependent and think that it's this panacea or like this end all cure all is where it becomes a problem. Yeah. So with that said, I want to kind of touch on each one and see what you're doing, what you're maybe not doing, or your thoughts on it, if you don't mind. And we don't have to go into deep detail, but I really do want to see, because you're obviously doing things right. And I don't think it's only one thing. I think when it's all of them are working together synergistically, I think is when you see the magic, right? Because you see people who only exercise, maybe they feel like shit, or they eat great, but they don't move. There's a lot of people in certain communities that they just only eat well, but it's like, you got to move too, you can't just or some people do everything, but they don't sleep. I have a good friend, I won't name him, but he does all of the above. This guy never sleeps. So I'm like, well, that's why you feel like shit, man, because you don't rest. Like, he's like, oh, but I take this and I do that. I'm like, yeah, but you don't sleep. So we can start from, as far as exercise goes. I know you do a lot of different things, but do you have like an overall arching concept or framework that you work within as far as cardio, resistance training? And it doesn't have to be heavy. It can be body weight, doesn't matter, but some kind of resistance, cardio, and flexibility / mobility. Do you have like a framework for what you do specifically and how you approach it?
Yeah, a lot of resistance training with body weight, and I use a lot of bands and a lot of balance and core work. So I'll use in all of my classes, we use little small instability balls. So my sort of philosophy is having the whole body working as a unit, as one unit. In terms of cardio, this is going to surprise you, I hate cardio. The idea of jumping up and down and pumping and sweating, and can't stand it. Cardio for me is brisk walking and hill walking, that kind of thing. Yeah. So just running up and down the spot for the sake of it. I just find it boring and tedious. I mean, I know some people love it. It's just, a lot of people are surprised that I don't really do a great deal of cardio, but there's a lot of science, and I won't go into it. One, because I wouldn't do it justice if I did. But when you get to sort of my age, a different kind of cardio has a more positive effect on aging. So sort of like pounding the streets and running heavy, lots of heavy cardio can be quite aging on the face. I will still run. I'll do some sprint training every now and again. So short bursts of sprinting with some power walking or some brisk walking is what I tend to do. And I do love hiking up hills. I live just at the very, very close to the edge of a place in the UK called the Peak District. And the name speaks for itself, the Peak District. A lot of hills, very, very beautiful. And I do love sort of hiking up hills and walking for miles. I like being out in nature. So that's how I get my cardio in. It's not really heavy. And then the rest of the stuff they say is body weight or resistance training or doing exercises that involve the whole body to get involved rather than doing like an isolated bicep curl, which I will do occasionally, but I prefer the whole body movement, mobility, flexibility. I do a lot of stretching as well. Lots of different types of stretching. Some types of stretching are not great. Some are short-term benefits, and then there's other types of stretching that have more long-term benefits to them. And again, I talk about those in my videos a lot on the YouTube, active stretching and different types and different methods as well.
Just for people watching, the type of cardio that you're referring to typically I would assume, falls under the category of zone 2 cardio, which is where you are walking at a brisk pace. And the idea is there's different levels for everybody, but you can talk, but you're not like here, like right now. It would be like if you were on the phone, someone would know, like, are you walking or something? Like you can hear they're breathing, not a leisurely, just enjoying the flower. Like you're moving, but you're just walking. So zone 2, there's a lot of data that shows is the healthiest form of cardio, especially for longevity as the base. So I follow Dr. Pita Tia, and he talks about zone 2 being like, if you look at a triangle, zone 2 would be the base. And so it represents like 80% of your cardiovascular output. So what you're doing is, I totally agree. I do the same thing. And I hate jogging and stuff. I feel it destroys my joints. I feel like shit after. It's never been my thing, but there is another type of cardio, which is more short duration, high intensity, which is like short spurts, like sprinting.
Yeah.
Where you can really only go all out for about 8 to 10 seconds. The human body can't go full blast for 30 seconds. It's physiologically impossible. Like you look at sprinters, they when they hit top speed, they can't maintain that for many seconds. It's just not the way we're designed. You can go all out for long, but you'll notice your speed diminishes and so there's a lot of science on the VO2 max and longevity. And so those short bursts are excellent for health. So I think we're on the same page. I do the same kind of thing, and I don't do those a lot. I do them maybe once or twice a week. You don't really need to do it like crazy. I have a whole video on VO2 max and things you can do. But yeah, that's awesome for your cardio. And then for your resistance, I like to say resistance because people say weight training. It's not the weights, it's the resistance that matters. Progressive, whether it's body weight or bands or weights, it doesn't matter. It's as long as you're challenging your muscles and getting stronger.
And working, and the resistance is, and I'm just going to use bicep curl just for an example. A lot of people will do a bicep curl, here's your weight, and they'll just work this movement, just the contraction, and then they'll let it go. But it's working in both. So you're resisting the weight as it's coming back down, resisting. So you're working the muscles in both directions. Much more effective and safe and injury preventing as well.
Yeah. So the eccentric phase, right? Where it's like the negative is actually more important because it's resisting against gravity. And I also agree with you that when I can, I do isolation stuff too, probably more so for aesthetics, because you like targets. As a guy, you want to have the pipes, but it's like, but I agree with you. When I can use multi-plane movements where my entire body is kind of working as a unit, and I find, kettlebells are great for that. Body weight, like gymnastic or, Pilates, gymnastics, yoga, those kind of things kind of incorporate those a little bit better where you're using the entire body. I totally agree with that. How many times do you typically do all of these different things per week for yourself? And how long are these sessions?
For myself, I would probably say, depending on how much admin I have to do, 2 or 3 times a week, dedicated just to doing them myself. And then I do my classes, my in-person classes as well. So I'll never give those up. However much online I go, I love being in the room with sort of, 15. We have a lot of fun doing what we do, a lot of fun. And it's just the pleasure to be among the energy. So, I teach those classes, but I would say even, let's say if I teach 7 classes a week in person, but a lot of that time I'm up and about and I'm walking among them. So I'm not doing 7 classes myself because I will demonstrate the exercise and I'm up and I'm adjusting and I'm moving and I'm barking and so dedicated for myself 3 times a week with what you refer to as the zone 2 cardio, another sort of 3 or 4 times a week. But also as well, we, in my living room, we have there's a permanent foam roller, there's a permanent resistance band, there's a permanent kettlebell. And so if we're watching a movie, I'll be doing something, I'll be stretching something. If I'm going to sit and watch a movie, there's no reason why I can't sit, lay on my back and do a little hamstring stretch or a little bit of hip mobility. I'm not going to miss anything. I just prefer to keep things moving. And that's better for me and my body as well, because I will, I've got to make sure that I don't seize up.
Yes.
As probably most people would need to, but my body's happier when it's moving than when it's static.
Absolutely. Me too. Years of wrestling and destroying my neck, things like that. I got to keep moving. And when I do, I'm good. Okay. So that's really cool. I'd like to point out that even though when you're teaching the class, you might not be doing everything you are demonstrating, you're still demonstrating, you're still walking up and down. So I would imagine if you measured your heart rate and your steps and all that, I'm sure you're still getting a more than average workout than most people would. So but that's cool. For you, it's bonus. It's like, but you're still active is my point. And people have to, it's like, okay. So we touched on the exercise component. I want to go into the nutrition. And that's including what you drink. Do you drink alcohol?
Very rarely. I will have a very occasional glass of wine. I probably would have maybe 2 glasses of wine a month. Yeah, I've never been a big drinker. It's never bothered me. I've not. I have drunk. It's just not something that I've ever really made part of my life, even when I was younger.
Okay, so minimal drinking, if that. As far as your eating habits. Do you follow a specific diet, things you avoid? When do you eat? All these things.
All my life, I eat when I'm hungry. I've always listened to my body. Breakfast, I know some people can't manage without breakfast. And I never have to try and teach nutrition, because I think it's a very different thing. And some people just can't imagine not having breakfast or not eating until 12 o'clock or 2 o'clock. That just feels natural to me. So I think for me, my number one rule is listen to my body. If I'm hungry, my body's saying it's time to eat. If I'm not hungry, I'm not just going to eat because it's 12 o'clock and that's what, we're supposed to do at 12 o'clock is eat lunch. I won't eat for the sake of it, because it's, that's like a cultural norm to eat breakfast, lunch, dinner or tea, as we say in the UK. I just listen. If I'm hungry, I eat, and if I don't, I don't. I do drink a lot of water. I do keep myself very hydrated. Now, when I do eat, what do I eat? I rarely eat any red meat. I tend to eat a lot of nuts, a lot of fruit, a lot of vegetables. And I try not to cook my vegetables. I try to eat a lot of raw stuff as well. So, and I don't eat big meals either. I can't stomach it. I'm going to have myself a naturally small stomach. So I'm what people would call, maybe call a grazer,
okay,
rather than a big meal eater. And I do have a Chinese takeaway once a week, or fish and chips.
Oh, I heard that you have some of the best fish and chips in the UK, right? Is that?
We do. So yeah, so
I have so many new friends from the UK. I'm adding you to that list, and they haven't visited yet, which is embarrassing. But I'm thinking probably 2025. I'm going to make a trip out there. Got a good buddy out there.
But I think 80% of the time I eat really good stuff, and so this morning there was a very unfortunate incident where there was a cherry bakewell left out from the night before. I ate it for breakfast with a coffee. Coffee and cake for breakfast, because that's what I fancied. I just think, what, I'm pretty good. I don't like junk food. McDonald's, you'll never see me at McDonald's. I'd have to be desperate or just going through for a bottle of water or something, but I just don't eat that processed stuff. I always say my diet is what my grandma used to make. They didn't have convenience food, didn't have quick food, they didn't have processed food. So I eat like my grandma used to cook when I was a little girl.
Do you cook yourself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. Does your husband? Does hubby cook?
Yeah. Okay. So this is the truth. hubby is the main chef in the house.
That's cool.
He's Caribbean. So
is he Jamaican?
He is.
What? I grew up around Jamaicans. I'm from Toronto. There's a lot of Jamaicans here.
There is a lot of Jamaicans there.
Yeah. So I grew up around Jamaicans, and I'm Latino. I'm Hispanic, but my best friend growing up was Jamaican too. So I was always going to his house, and the mom was always cooking, and I learned how to make some Jamaican food too. And I love Caribbean in general. There's a lot of Caribbeans in Toronto. Mm-hmm. So I love Caribbean food. I love Jamaican food. So you have all the oxtail and curry goat and dumplings and all.
Curry goat is my naughty favorite.
But it's good. It's good if it's made. It depends on how it's made, But it's yeah.
When I was pregnant with my daughter, I didn't want to eat anything that no red meat, and I didn't want to eat anything that wasn't good for my baby. I really wanted to not do that. But then it just got to me one day, I was just we were living in the Cayman Islands, and I sent my husband out. I said, go and get me some curry goat. I just need some curry goat and cream and Madeira cake. So cream, I was just used to, I love cream, any cream filled cakes, fresh cream. So I'll have my naughties, I'll have my cakes, and I'll have my treats. Don't deny them. Don't crave them, but don't deny them if I want one.
Right. That's good. I think that's a balanced way to live. I think any extreme on either side is not good. I don't think it's good to eat like shit all the time. And it's not good to be like a military sergeant with food either, which I have had phases in my life where I was like that. And it's like, it's not fun to live like that, but it's also not fun to be around people like that. They're kind of annoying, right? Nobody likes the extremes on either side. It's like, well, dude, relax. It's just fun.
I did try veganism for a while. I kept it up for a long time, and I did find a friend said to me, she said, "Oh, how can you tell there's a vegan in the room?" And I went, "I don't know." And she went, "Don't worry, they'll fucking tell you."
That's absolutely true.
And you know what? It's so true, because I became one of them. I was, I felt like I had to tell everybody I'm vegan.
Yeah, but do you notice now there's a whole carnivore diet thing now, right? So the carnivore diet is like people who only eat meat.
Really?
They're like on the opposite ends. They will tell you as well, and they'll preach about how you shouldn't eat vegetables and you should only eat. They're just as I'm talking with the extremists. I don't want to piss anybody off, and if I do, good, then I don't care either. But they're like the extremists on the other end. It's like, it's fine. If you want to eat like that, it's all good. Go for it. What works for you? I think like exercises, and every body is different and everybody is different, right? So it's like, sure. I just don't like when people kind of shove it down your throat. No pun intended. They're like telling you what you should do. It's kind of annoying. Okay. So it sounds like you intermittent fast. Is that fair to say? Do you eat within a shorter window? Not consciously, but it just seems like that's your routine. You eat between.
I think I did not realize till this, intermittent fasting became a thing that a lot of people are talking about now. I'm like, right. I think I've always been doing that.
Yeah.
That's
what happened to me too.
Yeah.
I was like, I eat in that same 8 to 9 hour window too. That's kind of how I eat.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't realize I've been doing it. So people say, God, you can fast, you cannot eat till 3 o'clock or whatever. And I'm like, Yeah, I've just been doing it all my life. I didn't realize it was a thing. If I'd known, I would have, branded it, marketed it, and sold it myself.
That's funny. So what window would you say you're at, just for the sake of argument? Is it between like 1 to 8, or like when do you start eating? When do you take any calories, and when do you stop taking any calories? That includes.
There's always times that I don't do it, depending on what we're doing. But as a rule, I don't really eat after 8 o'clock, and I don't really eat until between 12 and 1 the next day. So I don't know what's the calculation of that.
Yeah, so you basically go from 1 to 8 or 12 to 8-ish. So 8-hour window, give or take. And I know you, like you said, I'm not holding you to it. It's just generally how you eat, but you're not timing it, and it's just your cycle.
And if I ever did wake up hungry, I'd eat. So simple. Yeah.
I think that's a very healthy way to approach it. I agree with that.
It's not every day. I would say it's 80% of the time that I'm doing that. Like I say, if I wake up and it gets 9 o'clock and I want to eat something, I'll eat it. And there's no rule. It's just if my body's hungry, it's hungry.
That's great. I think that's awesome. And you said you stay very well hydrated. So is that something, just water? Do you drink, is water your go-to hydration? Or yes?
Yeah, pretty much.
You seem like one of those ladies that would have a big bottle and you just drink it.
Yeah. I'll stick different things in it. I'll stick cucumber in it or lemon in it.
Never heard that in my life. A cucumber in the water? That's crazy.
Yes, it's very good.
Let me try that.
The cucumber in the water.
Gives it like a taste? Like I said, and
it does have a little bit of a taste to it, yeah. I know some people put strawberries and raspberries and stuff in their water to give it different flavors.
I've lemon, of course, and lime. Yes, I've heard of. I've never heard of cucumber.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Like you cut it up. You just put it like with.
Yeah, just put half a dozen slices of cucumber in the water.
Oh, it's nice. Okay, I'm gonna try it. Here
we go.
Okay, cool. Okay, that's great. Now I'll ask you this, and then we'll move on. What are some must-have foods or things for you personally? I'm not suggesting you're encouraging everybody, but for yourself, is there like some must-haves that you're like, I have to eat this as much as I can, and also what should you avoid for you personally? You mentioned McDonald's fast food or like processed food.
Yeah, I don't eat any of that. Yeah, must-haves. I think for me, essential fatty acids. I can tell when I haven't had them. So I don't avoid fats in my diet. I avoid bad fats, but I don't avoid the good fats. So I always, people freak out. I have butter in my coffee.
Oh, okay.
I have a coffee in the morning. Yeah. Every morning I have a double espresso with a shot of butter. Real butter, real grass-fed butter in there.
It's great. I love coffee with butter in it. It tastes amazing.
Oh, you do?
I don't do it all the time, but I don't do it for any health benefit. I just actually like the way it tastes more so than cream. Like when I put a slice, like a little bit of butter for the texture, it tastes amazing, man. Honey and butter for me is if I use butter. That's the one.
I think for me, that would be my essential as well, would be the honey. So around where we live, there's a lot of honey, like local honey, what are they called? Farmers? You call them honey keepers? Sure. Yeah. And so my husband loves it. He loves going out. He has a motorbike and he goes a little ride out to the countryside with his little box in the back, and he'll come back with his little jars of local honey, and he'll go to different places as well. There's his favorites, and he'll come back with raw unpasteurized honey, local honey.
Yeah,
and
that's the best.
Yeah. And I've done some research on it. I'm quite fascinated by bees. So I think that wants to be my destiny, I think, is to be a beekeeper.
There's a good episode. Do you watch Joe Rogan? I'm sure you've heard of him.
No, I don't really watch TV.
He's a podcaster. You never heard of Joe Rogan?
No.
What? You're like one of the first people. That's crazy. Okay, cool. So Joe Rogan, there's a lady who is a beekeeper that was on his show, and she goes, like he goes deep into her career, and it's very fascinating. Like the first 20 minutes when she was explaining bees, there was so much stuff I had no clue about. I was like, holy shit. Like it's incredible. She's so passionate. Like she's obsessed with bees that it kind of gets you hooked because of her passion.
I would probably listen to that because I'm kind of a little bit in love with bees myself.
Ask your husband if he's ever heard of Joe Rogan.
Okay.
I'm sure he has. That's crazy. I mean, his podcast gets like, I don't know how many 100 millions of downloads per episode, et cetera. And he's also a UFC fighting announcer. He was also the host of Fear Factor, if you've ever heard of that.
I'm interested in the Bee Lady, definitely. The raw and unprocessed, because when the honey you tend to see on the shelves has been boiled, so we get it, literally straight out of the hive into the jar. I've been reading some research on how a spoonful of honey can sustain a human all day, and I think it's the one food. Now I don't know the science behind this or if it's actually true, but I've read that honey is the one thing that could sustain human life. If you just ate honey, it could sustain human life. That's what I've read.
I don't think I agree with that, but I think if you're stranded and you have nothing else, it's probably good.
It's very mineral dense. And I do have, I tend to put a teaspoon of bee pollen into a bit of yogurt or something as well. Just, raw bee pollen as well. Very dense in minerals. I do feel like it's good for my skin.
Honey and olive oil are probably my two biggest weaknesses as far as healthy. I might even overdo it. I love olive oil on almost everything, and I love honey on almost everything. They're like the two things I eat a lot of. I put honey on, even my mustard is honey mustard. Like it's a good obsession. And even French fries or anything like that, I use honey as my dip instead of ketchup or anything.
A lot of raw local honey.
Yeah, I get my raw. Unpasteurized as best I can. We have some friends with farmers and stuff, and so we get the raw honey as well. And I can tell the difference for sure, the texture. Okay, that's cool. So, do you take any supplements?
I take collagen powder.
Okay.
So that goes in my coffee in the morning. So my collagen, my honey, and my butter all go in my coffee in the morning.
I like the way you say butter. We say butter, you're like butter.
Butter. So yeah, they go
right. You guys, well, we apparently our English comes from England, so from UK. I don't know, but butter.
Yeah, we have variations in the UK as well. So I would say butter. The further down south UK, you say butter, but then the further north, you might get butter.
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 We say butter.
All together.
It's like BUDDER, butter.
Yeah, butter. So there's variations of how people say it here.
So collagen, is that it? Just collagen?
Collagen powder. I don't take a consistent supplement. I probably should, but turmeric. I'll take turmeric intermittently. I'll take different things. A lady, I can't remember her name now. She was in a group chat that I was in online, and she was talking about taking prenatal vitamins. And I just thought, her justification for it was quite good. And so I ordered some, and there was some that's really good for fetal eye development and something else. Brain and eye. And I was thinking, okay, well, my eyes are starting to go, my brain's starting to go. I figured if it can help grow a new one, it might be able to do a little bit of repair on these.
That's funny.
But that I've yet to. I've only been taking that for a few days. Whether it'll do anything or not, but probably just goes straight through me and does nothing. But
if you can start like seeing through walls or objects, it's working, right? All of a sudden, you take off your glasses. You're like, shit. 2020.
Well, I eat raw carrots. Most days I'll have a raw carrot, and that's supposed to be really good for your eyesight. But not anything. Yeah, you look really blurry to me now. But yeah.
All right. And any pharmacology, meaning medicine, pharmaceutical drugs, anything like that you take, hormones, or I know some people take, like men take testosterone, women take bioidentical hormones or something like that.
Yeah.
Do you guys take anything like that or no? Just trying to.
No, I've never taken that. I know there's a lot of women my age take hormone replacements and stuff, and I've never done that. I think I've been quite lucky. I think I've kind of gone through that phase of life fairly unscathed, but I know some women don't. You won't see me on my social media talking about menopause and all those kind of things. It's not something I've struggled with. So I think it wouldn't be right for me to talk about it or advise women on it, because I haven't, like the injury I had, I can relate to it. So I can make sense of it. I've not struggled with menopause. So it's not something that, it's not my bag. It's not what I'm going to talk about, because it wouldn't seem right. I don't know how these women are feeling and what they're experiencing. I can't relate to it. So I wouldn't push anything like that or even try to sound like I know anything about it.
Right. That's honorable of you. I admire that. That's pretty cool. So you doesn't seem like you rely much on supplements either or stuff like that, more so just from your food, and you just listen to your intuition, your instincts of, am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Like, which I think is the way we're designed, to be honest with you. I think.
I mean, in 5 years' time, my body may tell me, that it needs some kind of supplement, and I'll take it if there's benefit to it. But as I am right now, it's not nothing that I'm taking regularly.
Now, on the topic of preventative maintenance, et cetera, do you get checked out regularly? Do you do like blood work, go to the doctor and do all your panels and see where you're at?
All that. Yeah.
So that's great. And right there would identify oftentimes, hey, maybe your vitamin B or whatever is low, or et cetera. And that's why a supplement might come into thing. I think a lot of people don't realize the word supplement in and of itself is it's supposed to supplement your diet. It's not supposed to replace. Exactly. It's not supposed to be heated back. And a lot of people get stuck on that, where they don't do the other things. They do these supplements. Like I told you, my friend doesn't sleep, but he takes certain supplements to help with energy and recovery. And I'm like, but sleep is the foundation. You got to take care of home first, Now, sleep, also part of preventative. How's your sleep?
It's had its good days and it has its bad days.
Okay.
This may have been part of the menopause, but I went through a period of insomnia. I would really struggle to stay asleep. That was my problem. So I think I've kind of gone through that. My sleep can be really good or really bad. The problem with me is it gets to about 10 o'clock at night sometimes, and I get ideas. I start thinking about, something that I want to record or something that I want to say or an exercise. I'm like, oh, wow, that's really good. And I have to kind of like act on it there and then. And then my husband's in bed. And then at 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm like tapping him and going, you need to see this ankle exercise I've just come up with. And he's asleep and he's done. So I'm just laid there and I'm thinking, waiting for him to wake up so I can show him. No, I practice it. Yeah. So my thing is getting ideas and I get excited. So I have to really, kind of tune out a little bit and tune into to rest. I get very excited about different things. Thanks to my business consultant, I get very excited about business and business ideas and about my own business as well. And so, I kind of get into that. And when I get into something, it's a bit hard for me to get off that wheel sometimes. I have to be very disciplined.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I get those as well. It's very energizing. And when you are passionate about the thing you're doing, I think is a blessing as well. Because a lot of people, their quote unquote job or whatever source of income they have, I'm blessed. Like this is part of what I do. And I love these conversations. I'm not doing this. I would do this normally. So for me, it's a blessing, like these kinds of things and all. I can relate to what you're talking about. On average, how many hours would you say you sleep? Just speaking on average, and when do you sleep? How long?
I would probably say on average 6. But I would love to get a good 7 hours sleep every night. But yeah, I cannot lie in bed. Some people it's Saturday, it's Sunday, and I'll lay in bed till 10 o'clock. I would just be like laid there like, what am I doing here? I'm just like wasting life. Actually, I want to get up, and then as soon as the birds start singing, I'm up.
Okay. So you're naturally very energetic. That's just your personality, probably.
Yeah.
There's different cycles. People have different sleep patterns. So that's good. And do you take naps or anything, or not really your thing?
Love a nap.
Okay.
Love an afternoon nap. Love it. Yeah.
Every day? Typically taking a nap?
No, not every day. If I've not been getting the sleep that I need at night, it will catch up with me. And, sometimes before my daughter comes home from school, I just think, and lay down, I'll have a little nap, and it's lovely. It's yeah.
Well, how long is a nap typically?
An hour.
An hour. Okay. I have a friend who's like, I just took a nap. Like, how long? It's like 5 hours.
I've done those before.
You're such an asshole. That's not a nap. It's still funny.
Yeah, but I like
it.
What
are you talking about? It's during the day. I'm like, that's not a nap though, by definition. Like 5 hours.
I don't go for a nap every day, but if my body's, my eyes are going, my body feels tired, I will sit down and shut down.
Yeah. I love a good nap. Unfortunately, I can't get them in as much anymore, but when I'm one of those people, I can fall asleep anywhere, anytime. You could light me on fire when I'm asleep and like, I'm not waking up. When I was little, my parents told me that they thought there's been times where they thought I was dead. Like, because you got to take him to the hospital. Like, why is he not responding? Like, I would fall off a bed or something. And I would just keep going. Like, I'm a heavy sleeper, which is probably not good if anyone breaks in, my house.
Yeah. I think I could be like, I can either be really light sleeper, or I can be, if my body needs to sleep, it's sleep. I mean, when I was younger, I have fallen asleep in nightclubs next to the boombox, the speaker, and I've got wait for my friends, and they're there, and I have literally fallen asleep with my head on the speaker when I need to sleep. One friend said to me one time, I'd never heard the expression, I've never heard anybody else say it, but she said, you could fall asleep on a chicken's lip.
I've never heard that.
I've never heard it. I don't know what it means, but it's just kind of stuck with me. Okay, fall asleep on a chicken's lip.
That might be the title of this podcast: How to Fall Asleep on a Chicken's Lip.
On a chicken's lip.
All right. Why chicken's lip? I don't get it.
I have no idea. I don't do chicken's
I could understand on a rooster's lip because there's, the whole thing of roosters.
Yeah, I never understood it. She just said it randomly, and I thought, okay.
Cool. Okay. That and the cucumbers is new. Cucumber in the water and falling asleep on a chicken's lip. Okay, so we talked about how you eat, you're staying hydrated, sleep, and the role it plays. We talked about exercise and cardio and all that stuff. I think another thing I didn't mention, which you kind of alluded to in this conversation, is the importance of relationships, community. I would say like that emotional health component. Mm-hmm. So, for example, how we manage stress, how we kind of operate in the world. Some people are kind of set for being pessimistic and down and perhaps seeing the glasses half full. Mm-hmm. And other people seem to be a little bit more optimistic, and they, even when the challenges come, they just look at it through a different lens. And from, obviously we don't know each other that well, just from what I gather, it seems like you're generally somebody who's passionate, excited. You seem to have a great relationship at home, and you love what you do. You would love to help people, and you seem like you probably have some good relationships. Am I correct in that assessment?
Yeah, that's pretty much. I'm quite a homebody. I don't have a huge circle of friends or people who are close to me. I have a very small circle. I have this circle, which is quite small. There's a very few people in it. And then I have a slightly outer circle, which are, I don't want to use the word superficial friends because none of them are superficial friends, but acquaintances, people who I'm friendly with rather than close to.
Understand.
The difference? But yeah, I mean, I can count on this hand and still have change for the number of people that are in that real inner circle.
Right, like tight friend and stuff. But would you say that not so much in the quantity? I'm not speaking about that. More so like the quality, where it's really deep, where you have that emotional support. You have, like, especially, for example, when you talked about your husband during your accident, like if you had to do it alone, I would imagine it would have been really tough, right? And so that's what I'm talking about, like having that community, whether it's 1 or 10, it doesn't matter. It's just a sense of community, even with how you help people. I see you light up when you talk about, I love doing my classes still. It doesn't matter how much online, and you still like that interaction, which to me falls under that umbrella of community. Does that play a big role for you? Like, does that keep you humble and happy? And
yeah, I like to feel that there's something that I do that matters to other people, that I'm doing something with people that's really important to them and really beneficial to them, because the energy that's created in that room, in that environment at that time is incredible. And whatever they're getting from it, I'm getting tenfold, because it just makes me feel like I've got a purpose. And it's a darn good one as well. Making people feel better. When people spend an hour with me and we spend an hour together and they walk out of that room and they feel good, they feel lifted, they feel energized, they feel amazing. Like I said, whatever that gives them, it gives me tenfold. I can be, on my knees and I had no sleep, not through choice of my own, and just feeling like crap and thinking, oh God, the thought of getting out of bed or driving to my studio and teaching. The second I walk through that door and the first person walks in, it's like a light, it's like a switch goes off. I just go into a whole different vibe, just immediate. It's very symbiotic. They're just as important to me as as they feel I am to them. I could never give it up. You know, if I won the lottery and sold my brand for, 10 million tomorrow, I didn't need any money, I would still rock up to that class on a Tuesday morning, on a Friday morning. No two ways about it.
That's beautiful. That's a blessing too. I think that's important. And I think that's probably one of the keys to your vibrant nature and health and all that. It's a purpose. Yeah. And you get it from that. So that's great.
Yeah. I need them. They think they need me, but I need them.
That's really cool. I love that. I'd love to see one of your, is it only women?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
I was going to say, I got to go wig shopping and.
No. It's a mixture of men and women, and they're all.
I'd love to join one of your classes.
I think what's great as well. I mean, the sort of average age in my class, I would say is 55. That would be like, your median. Obviously, I don't think there's anybody under the age of 40, 45 in my classes, so sort of 50 like upwards. And they're of that time of their life where they have less of a filter. So you get a lot of honesty, and they care far less than what we did in our 20s, and it's just a great, honest space to be. I
love that. I get that from my martial arts too. My demographic is 95% men, but the women that join too are also pretty badass, and that's the vibe. It's pretty bold, honest, vulgar, just not rude and obnoxious, just real, like just
kind of
jokes.
Tribe, yeah. But you're
yeah, you're just real, and I'm lucky, I'm blessed to have a lot of friends where we can have that type of energy to keep each other humble, make fun of each other, call each other out on bullshit. You need that. I think it's important.
Yeah, you definitely do. Yeah, I always say of my friends and of my friendship to them is that you don't want somebody to tell you what you want to hear. You need someone who will tell you what you need to hear.
100%. So I think we've touched on pretty much most of the main areas. I just want to ask you a question. What would you say, in your opinion? Well, first of all, do you think there are secrets to health? Do you think there are some secrets to optimizing one's health?
I think there are secrets, but I think they are secrets that they're not really hidden. They're just not realized, if that makes sense. So I think a lot of it starts here and here.
So for the listeners, pointing to your head and your heart.
Pointing to my head and my heart, yeah. So, if you feel it here and you want it here and you act on it through here, that's it. But a lot of people, I think that secret is there and it's talking to you and it's telling you, but we don't listen. And that's the secret. It's no longer a secret when you're listening to what you should be listening to in your body. When you suppress it and you ignore those voices and you ignore those messages in your body, you're making it a secret. You're making it hidden. And people want to go and look somewhere else. They want a miracle cure, or they want somebody like me who's got a secret to share it to them. So it's just, here's the secret. Here's the combination. Turn it, bang, everything's better. Well, it doesn't exist.
So when you say listening to your mind and your heart, what do you mean specifically as it relates to health?
I think many people are good at ignoring what your body's telling you. I don't know why. Maybe we don't want to hear it. Maybe we think it's too much effort to listen to your body. Maybe we think it's too much of a sacrifice to live a certain way or a certain lifestyle, or to do a particular fitness program or follow a particular, fitness routine or diet or whatever. I think, I've never really figured out why, because it's not something I can relate to, but why we sometimes, press that message back down, why some people don't listen to it. Some people don't want to hear it. Some people don't want to hear that they can cure themselves or they can get better. Sometimes they're happy not doing it. There's a really bizarre thing about horses. And I can remember when I was younger, on all the stables that I used to go to, there would be a fire drill. And on every fire drill, every horse's stables and every stables, it always said, in case of a fire, get the horses out the stables and shut the door, lock the stable door. And the reason is because the horse will always go back to the stable. That stable could be burning down, the roof could be on fire. It will always go back to that stable rather than run for the hills. And there's a funny kind of psychology in that. And I think sometimes that happens with people. You know, I think they feel safer in their state rather than, you know, sort of, face something new and something unfamiliar and try it and set themselves free. They sometimes want to go back to that stable and stay in that stable. I don't know why. I haven't figured it out. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's fear of the unknown. Maybe it's a bit of a fear of failure. But even if you try and leave that stable and you fail and you have to go back to the stable, at least you tried. That's my fear, is never trying, you know, to get to the end of my life and figure, well, I never tried to run. I never tried to escape the stable. I never saw, you know, what was on the other side. I'd rather go there, discover it wasn't all it was meant to be, but to not know and to not try and to not experience it, that's too scary for me. So I think there's a lot of fear in people when it comes to fitness and exercise and doing things and trying to optimize their health. They're afraid that it might not work.
I like that. That's an excellent metaphor. Another one I like a lot, along with your husband's. That's great. I think we can end it there because that was beautifully said. I really appreciate that mindset. I think out of everything we spoke about, the theme that seems to connect all of it is your perspective on things. And I this is what I take from it. Anyhow, that mindset, that belief that like you have to keep pushing even through the hardest times. You could have definitely gave up, right? Said, be partially paralyzed. I'm going to probably have to rely on drugs and it would have been downhill. But you were like, no.
Hello.
Fuck you. Not part of my language. But hey, you need that though. I admire it. You need that, you know.
I think the reason I was successful at recovery was because I did have my husband. He believed it. He believed me. Right. And, you know, at times when I didn't believe it and I felt a little bit weak, he was there.
That's beautiful. Blessing for sure.
Yeah.
Are there any tips just as a take home for people that are watching this that maybe there's probably a variety of people that will see this. There's people who are on the fence to get started and they want to live a healthier life in all the areas we talked about, but they need that push. There's people who are currently doing it, just looking for maybe some more insights. And then there's others who are like probably ahead of us, but they're like, again, also looking for more fuel. What would you say to them, specifically the ones who are kind of on the fence or getting started and really?
Yeah, I think if you're already fit and healthy and active, the stuff that I teach, you can do it alongside. It's not designed to replace it. It's not to say you have to stop doing that. You have to do it this way. It's something you integrate into it. Okay. And you can work with it. And for the people sitting on the fence, I would say just ask yourself, what is really stopping you? Why are you not? And be really honest with yourself. If you can come up with a credible answer as to why you shouldn't just do one little thing every day for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, then let me know, because I'll probably have a reason why that's not the case and why you should do it. Yeah. So, but I think a lot of it is fear. Don't be afraid. This is all designed to, everything that I do and that I teach is designed to alleviate the fear so that you're not going to hurt yourself. So you're not going to be harmed. And there's always something we can do. There's always a way around it. If you think, oh, I've got a bad knee, so I can't exercise. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can.
I recently have bad knees now. I hate to even say that. I've injured my knees. And so
my knees are recovering.
Yeah,
they're in the recovery process.
I'm a big believer in, words or thoughts or things, and words become manifest as stuff for sure. I believe the power of our words. So I'm always catching myself like, no, I don't have bad knees. I had an injury. The truth is I never did have bad knees my entire life. So I know that's bullshit. I've been recently thinking about a question I like to ask people. A lot of podcasters have like their thing. And I recently thought of something, and I hope you don't mind. I want to ask. So let's say, imagine yourself you left this world, you pass away, and despite what you believe in, you're going to another dimension or whatnot, etc. But you can only take one lesson, or one lesson that you can leave for maybe your daughter or for your friends and family. But you can only take one with you in that one lesson. What would that be?
One lesson.
I probably should have asked you beforehand, because that's probably good. But but what I love about not asking before, because I thought of that, the instinctual response is usually the one I find that comes from the heart right away.
From the heart right away would be a meat person. It's not related to fitness. I think this is
it doesn't have to be anything.
Is the value of freedom, not just being free yourself, being free of fear, being free of also giving other people that freedom. And that can be in your marriage, in your relationships. And it sounds like a strange thing, but my husband has his freedom. I have my freedom. If he has an opportunity to go overseas and do somewhere, I'm going to encourage him to go. To give people their freedom. And this is what I love in my job as well, is helping people to get physically better. It gives them their freedom. So the one thing I would take away from the planet would be that the value of freedom, of having it and of giving it.
That's beautiful. If you're familiar with Jocko Willink, which this kind of ties in perfectly. I have this book I'm reading right now. So,
Extreme Ownership.
Yeah, right. The book is called Extreme Ownership, How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win. And he's a former Navy SEAL commander, et cetera. But there's a lot of metaphors that relate to business and life, et cetera. And his main philosophy is discipline equals freedom. Like, that's everything he talks about. And the idea is that if you're disciplined, what you eat, how you sleep, all the stuff we're talking about, it gives you freedom. So it's kind of like that. It's ironic, right? Because you would think the more discipline you have, the less freedom you have. It's more rigid, right? But it's the opposite, because you are very disciplined, and that allows you to have all this freedom. If you didn't take care of your mobility and your flexibility and your resistance, you would lack that freedom, because your things break down. Mm-hmm. So it kind of ties in. It's funny how it ties into what I'm reading too. So maybe it's a message for me as well. So I love it. So
probably not a coincidence.
No, definitely. I don't believe in them. Jodi, please tell me where everyone can find you. I'm going to include everything in the links as well, and I have them, but I just would like you to tell everybody where they can find you, anything you have, social media, programs, etc.
Well, you can find me on YouTube. The Fitness Lady Online is my YouTube name, The Fitness Lady Online. Although I'm sure if you just type in The Fitness Lady, if you can't remember the online bit, I will pop up there. So The Fitness Lady Online on YouTube and on Instagram, simple, The Fitness Lady on Insta. I have a TikTok and everything, so the links are all I'm on. But you find those two, and then my website, really difficult to remember, it's thefitnesslady.co.uk.
.co.uk. Okay. So, and obviously on the website, it's got the links to all these different channels. It's got the
links to them all.
Okay, great. I'm going to include all of those. I'm also going to include, as we discussed, the link directly to the playlist. We talked about the foot playlist for all you weirdos with foot fetishes. No, I'm just joking.
You never know. They play my videos. What?
I had that in my head earlier. I'm like, should I say it? Should I discuss it?
Yeah, I think there's an audience for that as well. But
that's not judging anybody. Not judging anybody. But it's funny. And there was another playlist we talked about. Can you remind me?
I think it was a hip mobility one.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and a foot one.
And glutes, hip type thing. So I'm going to put links to all that. And I also have to send you the Bee Lady episode.
Yes, please. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
I think that's it. Anything else? Anything else you want to mention?
No, I think that's good. I think we've covered all bases. Would just like to add, though, on the end of this, just to mentioned it throughout the interview, but just to honor my husband, because none of this is possible without him. You don't see his face very often, and he doesn't make an appearance very often in the videos. He does sometimes, but he is actually, I get a lot of my ideas from him, a lot of support from him. Without him, it's not possible. So I would just like people to to recognize that and to know that the unsung hero, if you like.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's awesome. I love that. And I would love to have him on the show if he's open to it. If he's a private guy, it's all good. I'm sure him and I would have some. Yeah, but I'm sure him and I could have some, we'll build some rapport because again, I grew up with my Jamaican brothers and I have some funny stories and I'm sure it'll open him up a bit. So
I'll suggest it to him.
Yeah, I would love to. I'd love to pick his brain on his experiences and what it was like from his perspective, because I think people can get a lot of value from that.
He got good at ducking the plates and the cups.
Yeah. How did you develop all your reflexes? Well, Jodi was going nuts one day and I had to go full-blown Matrix. What'd you do? Like I existed.
No, what? Yeah, we laugh about it now. I think there was one time I got very frustrated because I wanted to peel a potato and I was struggling to stand up and do it. And I just launched the potato and it left like a potato-shaped hole in the fresh plaster on the wall. And just he just happened to walk in. He just literally went,
that's hilarious.
And it hit the plaster.
Well, my girl's a Latina and she's also up, into martial arts and stuff. So I'll just leave it there. Okay, Jodi. So I'm going to end this interview. A little bit of a technical glitch, but we're all good. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It really helps me grow the podcast. Remember to sign up for my free 5 Health Hacks newsletter. You can head over to youthfulagingsecrets.com/subscribe and join for free. Stay healthy, and I'll see you on the next one.